Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new webinar. Today's topic is one of the most misunderstood Scrum events. And of course, I'm talking about the daily Scrum. So we're going to try to understand today what the daily Scrum is all about. We're going to go a bit through the Scrum guide. And after that, we're going to do together practice questions involving only Scrum questions. So if this sounds like the kind of webinar you want to participate in, let's jump right into it. So this is what we're going to do here. We're going to go to scrumguides.org and we're going to read the online version. So we're going to jump here directly to daily Scrum. And I know this sounds super boring, but there's only this amount of text, which is the daily Scrum event. There can be so many misunderstandings. So let's just take a few minutes to go together over the text and try to understand what the Scrum guide is actually saying about the daily Scrum. So the purpose of the daily Scrum is to inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary, adjusting the upcoming planned work. The daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers of the Scrum team. To reduce complexity, it is held at the same time and place every working day of the sprint. If the product owner or the Scrum Master are actively working on items in the sprint backlog, they participate as developers. The developers can select whatever structure and techniques they want, as long as their daily Scrum focuses on progress toward the sprint goal and produces an actionable plan for the next day of work. This creates focus and improves self-management. Daily Scrums improve communications, identify impediments, promote quick decision-making, and consequently eliminate the need for other meetings. The daily Scrum is not the only time the developers are allowed to adjust their plan. They often meet throughout the day for more detailed discussions about adapting and or replanning the rest of the sprint's work. So this is the first part of the daily Scrum. But we should also use the search function in our browser to search for the daily Scrum, because there can be, as for any other Scrum concept, there can be other places where we can encounter the term daily Scrum. So obviously we have it a few times in the section discussing the daily Scrum. There can be also additional parts where the daily Scrum is mentioned. For example, we're going to see here there's something in the sprint backlog, or there can be maybe something else, also something about the sprint. So always keep in mind when you're researching a topic, don't look into that respective section only, expecting to find all the information, but also take a few minutes, search through the entire Scrum guide to identify also other parts of the Scrum guide where a specific topic is mentioned. Okay. And in the next couple of minutes, because we're going to do a lot of questions together, in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to briefly explain the basics of dealing with exam questions. So what is my recommended approach for answering this kind of questions in case you're preparing for an exam? So a few important things. First of all, we want to make sure that we understand the question that we see in our practice question, because if you don't understand the question, it's going to be very difficult to select the correct answers, right? So quite often people go very fast over the question, miss some important words, and then start selecting answers, right? And this is also partially because a lot of the Scrum questions, they are kind of like similar to one another, but at the same time, two questions can be very similar and ask two different things. So if you're just missing one word in a question, that could be a key detail that can change everything. So this is the reason why I'm always recommending just pause for a second, take a moment to read the question, and then start selecting answers. Okay. Apart from this, before you start clicking yourself through multiple answers, try to understand how many answers are expected in the first place, right? So if you need to select one answer, then you know that you need to select one answer. So don't start selecting stuff before you know how many answers are required. Sounds kind of a basic, but again, many people, they can spend a lot of time maybe trying to find the second answer when the question maybe has only one, or tries to select 3 answers when there are only 2. Apart from this, Scrum exam questions are generally focused on the contents of the Scrum guide. Not only, this is a common misconception. A lot of people think that exam questions are just about the Scrum Guide. No, but a lot of questions can be answered just by following the Scrum Guide. So what you need to understand, especially if you have practical experience in the field, is that you need to always approach questions from the Scrum Guide perspective. Scrum certification doesn't care about your experience, doesn't really care so much about how you would solve a particular situation if you would encounter that like right now in your life. It cares more about if you understood some general Scrum principles. So you always need to think if the answer that you're about to select is just an answer that makes sense from a logical perspective, or is it actually an answer that somehow is related to things you saw in the Scrum Guide, something that aligns with the Scrum Guide. So that's another super important aspect. Now, the approach that I suggest you use when dealing with question is so-called the elimination approach. So if you know how many answers are expected, all you have to do is start eliminating the answers that you know, or at least think you know, are incorrect. Because the theory in this case is that if you're going by the process of elimination, you're going to know at the end, like, what is the answer that is left. And if that answer is also the answer that you thought it should be the right one, then you have kind of like almost double checked. So you're kind of like drilling a tunnel from two different places. And if you meet, then that's a good thing. Apart from this, you also want to double check. Again, coming back to the idea from earlier, you're about to select now answer B. Think just once again. Does answer B align with the Scrum Guide? Or is it just an answer that I think it's good, right? So first we eliminate, and then we double check again just to make sure that there's nothing fishy out there, right? Okay, so this is where we're coming more towards the part of this event where I'm counting on your participation. So we're going to do this as follows. I need volunteers. So I'm asking you to raise your hand. And I'm going to get people in order depending on, who has raised their hands first. But this is the way it's going to work. So if you want to learn today, and if you want to improve your Scrum understanding, this is the best use of your time. So do not hesitate to raise your hand, regardless how much you think you know about Scrum. Maybe you have just started yesterday, or maybe you are using Scrum for years now and you just want to clarify something. Doesn't really matter. We are here all to learn, right? So don't be afraid that you're going to make a mistake. Don't be afraid. We're not here to make fun of you or something like that. We are all here to learn. And you need to remember that at one point in time, everyone was a beginner, right? So nobody was born knowing Scrum or knowing anything else. So there's absolutely no issue with that.
The daily Scrum is scheduled every day at 9 a.m., but the Scrum Master can't join on Mondays because of a conflicting meeting with management. How can this situation be resolved? Select the best answer. A, schedule the meeting at 8 a.m. when the developers and the Scrum Master don't have meeting conflicts. Well, the Scrum Master is obviously part of the Scrum team, but he is not relevant for the sprint itself because he's not in a role of a developer. So for me, he is not necessary. It's not mandatory to be in this meeting.
Okay, so what are your initial thoughts about A? Is this something where you're sure it's not a good answer, or you're like, let's leave it and continue with the next one?
I think it's not a good answer.
Okay, so let's go ahead and eliminate A. Okay, and let's continue with B.
B, keep things as they are. There is no need for the Scrum Master to be present. So basically, this is what I've just said. So we keep this answer.
Okay.
C, allow the product owner to join the daily Scrum. Afterwards, the product owner can report to the Scrum Master any impediments.
How does this one sound to you?
This one sounds logic as well, because as a product owner is also in his responsibility to keep the team accountable that we achieve the sprint goals.
Okay, cool. So let's keep it for a second. Let's also take a look at D to see what it says.
D, skip the daily scrum on Monday since there is nothing to report anyways because no work was done during the weekend. I would also take that out because maybe it was nothing done during the weekend, but the last daily scrum meeting was on Friday morning. So I mean, there was something done on Friday.
Okay.
So I would also take that out.
I agree with you. And apart from this, we also want to use the daily scrum to plan the next 24 hours, right? So even if we did nothing the last 24 hours, there's still a reason to have the meeting and discuss what we're planning to do next. We still have two answers, B and C, two potential answers. So as you can see, maybe at least visually, just by eliminating two of the options, at least we know that we don't worry about them so much anymore, right? So our focus is now on B or C. So let me ask you, from just your gut feeling and partially also from what you know from the Scrum Guide, which do you think would be best? Because there's always not a perfect answer. We just need to select the best answer from the ones that are available. Which of the ones here do you think aligns best with the Scrum Guide?
I would say B.
Okay, why is that?
Because the Scrum process is agile for me, and agile doesn't mean that I'm dependent on the Scrum Master. I should be able to plan my work, or the team should be able to plan their work without the Scrum Master. Like if he's only not able to attend one time, it would not matter for me.
Okay.
So I would say B.
Okay. I tend to agree with you. But there's one additional thing I need you to do. Do you have the Scrum Guide open on your computer or like in a printed format or something? No. Okay. So after we're done with this question, open the Scrum Guide and look again where in that paragraph that we read is the Scrum Master mentioned, and if it has any relation to this context. So the correct for this one is B, but what I wanted you to actually say, like from a perfect answer or from a perfect argumentation, is why do we need a product owner in the event? It says in the Scrum Guide, this is an event for the developers. It doesn't say it's an event for the developers and the product owner. It doesn't say it's an event for the developers and the Scrum Master. And apart from this, we don't need to have the Scrum Master attend the meeting to report any impediments that we have. Remember, the Scrum team is in constant communication. So they don't need a fixed event to exchange information. If an impediment, let's say, occurs at any time during the day, they're not going to wait almost 24 hours for the next daily Scrum to appear and to say, by the way, Scrum Master, we do have a problem, right? So you wasted, let's say, 23 hours in which something could have done. At the same time, even if something is identified during the meeting itself, there's nothing preventing the team from reaching out to the Scrum Master right after the event and explaining the impediment. So from this perspective, this is the wrong argumentation to have additional people come into the meeting just so that they can report impediments. And one of the, let's say, bad words that we are on a lookout in this kind of questions is the word report. In Scrum, there's no reporting. There are no hierarchies between people. The product owner or the Scrum Master, they are not the bosses of the developers or something like that. So everyone is kind of like on the same level. So when we see the word to report something, we should already raise the red flag and say, with this option, there's something fishy going on, right? But you have correctly identified the correct answer. So if this would have been an exam question, you wouldn't have had any issues. So let's continue with Ne. So this is the question that I have for you. Would you be so kind, go ahead and read it and then let me know what you think, because it's a simple true or false question.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So it says the daily scrum represents a formal opportunity for the product owner to inspect the sprint progress and provide the developers feedback. True or false?
Okay. So what do you think about this one?
I would say false.
Why?
Because the daily scrum is meant for the developers to talk about what they did yesterday and what they're going to do today, and if there's any impediments in their way. So basically, it's just meant for developers to talk about the sprints.
So what is the role of the product owner during the daily Scrum meeting?
The role of the product owner is to see if they're working on the sprint backlog.
And if they're not, if they're slacking, it's gonna come and what is the product owner gonna do? Okay, so let's just clarify this misunderstanding. So we read in the beginning the Scrum guide, and I do encourage you all to go again and reread it. And if you look inside the Scrum guide, you're gonna see that the product owner is practically not even mentioned. So there's a sentence where it says something with the product owner, but we can summarize that in a nutshell. The daily Scrum is for the developers and only for the developers. And the Scrum guide does not mention the product owner as having a role during this event. The same goes for the Scrum Master. So now, in regards to what you're saying, again, the product owner is not the manager of the developers. So the product owner does not need to check that the developers are doing their work. The developers are self-managing, and they figure out how to do their own work without having the product owner breathe beneath their necks and what are you doing there? Are you working? It's like this is not the way Scrum is intended. Okay. So from this perspective, the answer to this question is indeed false. Just wanted to get the correct reasoning for that, just to make sure that we are on the same page. And as you can see, it's not so much about answering the question, it's about understanding what you understood about the daily Scrum, because when you're explaining what's in your head, I can better spot what are your misunderstandings, right? So again, your misunderstandings were about the role of the product owner. So go back to the Scrum guide, try to kind of like forget everything that you know about the event, go back and see what exactly is the Scrum guide saying about this event. And we're going to continue with Anna. So this is the question that I have for you.
Which of the following Scrum events have a time box? Select all answers that apply. Means there are some, not one, many answers may be there.
Correct. So we don't know in advance how many answers there are. This makes our process a bit trickier, but let's see. I think we can still manage it.
Okay. Sprint review, yes. It's a green flag.
Okay, so sprint review we're looking for Scrum events that have a time box, right? Let's say sprint review. Okay, that's a good one. I'm gonna make it here a check mark. Next one.
Sprint planning. This is also event and time box is 8 hours.
Okay, cool.
Release retrospective. No, we don't have such an event in the Scrum guide.
No, we don't have a retrospective?
No. We have sprint, not Scrum retrospective.
Scrum retrospective, are you sure?
Sprint retrospective.
Sprint retrospective. Okay, good. So you notice here that
it's not there.
Okay, cool. Okay, so okay, it's a good idea to know exactly how the Scrum events are called, because otherwise, we're in the exam and kind of start forgetting stuff. And okay, cool.
Then daily Scrum, no, because daily stand up, no, because we have daily Scrum. There is no event as daily stand up.
Okay, cool, very good. This was the second trick answer. Okay.
And product backlog requirement, no, it's not that because it's not activity, not a event.
Okay, so someone is very, very well prepared. I like your confidence in dealing with these answers. Okay. So in a nutshell, the explanation that you have given is absolutely correct. In a nutshell, want to pay attention to how events are named. So if it's not the exact same name as it appears in the Scrum guide, we are not selecting that answer. Typical case is with daily stand-up. A lot of people call it just simply stand-up, but it's not the official name. So if you select it, then this is not going to be correct. How you call it in practice, that's a different thing. But from an exam perspective, that's super important to remember. And as you said, product backlog refinement, this can also be a big trap because this is an activity. This is not a Scrum event. It doesn't have a time box. So we really want to understand which are the Scrum events. Perfect. Let's continue with Clementine.
Okay, so the Scrum Master should attend every daily Scrum to ensure it does not go over the 15 minutes time box. True or false? I will go for false, B, because the daily Scrum is only for developers and not for the Scrum Master. Neither is it for product owners.
Okay, very good. I like your confidence with this one. It
Thank
seems
you.
that all the conversations that we're having about this event, it helps clarify some of the doubts. Let's go ahead and continue with Philip.
Yes. So why do the developers have the daily Scrum meeting? Select the best 3 answers.
Okay, so we're looking for 3 answers this time.
Yes. To answer the following 3 questions. 1, what did you do yesterday? 2, what am I going to do today? And 3, do you have any impediments?
What do you think about the first answer? Is this a valid answer? Do you think there's anything wrong with it?
So I absolutely do not think it's this one. I believe there are some older versions of the Scrum guide mentioning these 3 golden questions of the daily Scrum, but this is long gone. There's no 3 questions.
Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and just eliminate this one, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, we're not wasting any time. Perfect. Very good start.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at B.
To inspect the work done since the last daily Scrum. I think I'll keep that one for now.
Okay. Let's continue with C.
Yes. To adapt the sprint backlog based on new insights. No, I don't believe there's anything about adapting the sprint backlog.
Okay, so you want to remove this one?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's look at D.
Right. To sync with the product owner and report the progress made. So no, it's not going to be that one. As people have mentioned before, the product owner is not really supposed to be a part of that meeting.
Okay. And you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good.
Yes, and to identify new impediments. Sure.
Okay. Okay. Last one.
To inform the Scrum Master about new impediments. Greatness. I might have made a mistake here, though.
Okay.
Because,
that's okay.
I don't think there's anything about informing the Scrum Master of anything.
Okay, so we can remove that as well, right?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, perfect.
So I guess I need to bring back C.
So you need to bring back C. Okay. Yeah. Why have you changed your mind about C?
Because there might be something about adapting that. I just forgot that it's a while since I've read the Scrum Guide.
Okay. That's fair enough. So yes, C is one of the correct answers. And sometimes the correct answers to a question, they may sound very boring or they may sound very theoretical, but that doesn't make them incorrect answers, right? So we're always trying, when we're trying to remove an answer as a potential one, we need to find a flaw. Like what exactly is it in this answer that it makes it to be somehow against the Scrum guide or against some Scrum principles, some Scrum values or something like that. And in this case, it's very difficult to find something, find some flaws into this, because in a nutshell, the idea of the daily Scrum is to have the team together, to have the developers together. They were going to look at what has happened in the last daily Scrum, right? So we inspect the work. We have this part. So we're inspecting the work. Yeah. And then, as you will notice quite often when we have to select 2 or 3 answers, if you start reading the answers one after the other or in a specific order, they kind of like complement each other. So as if it was a longer sentence and it has been broken into smaller parts. So if you individually look at something, it's like, oh, this doesn't make so much sense. But if you actually start to inspect the work done, to adapt the sprint backlog, to identify new impediments, you kind of like, oh, this kind of like sounds similar to what the Scrum guide is saying, right? So the idea is like the developers, they are meeting and they are having discussions, or whatever they're doing during the event, it's up to them to organize it. As you were saying in the beginning, we don't have any questions or something like that. I mean, they can use this questions if they wish to do so, but it's definitely not mandatory. So it's totally up to them, self-managing developers, to decide how they structure the event. And then they maybe discuss about something and discover, oh, look, we need to do some additional testing, or we need to write some additional documentation. So this new information, to make it transparent, we put it in the sprint backlog just to keep track of it, right? So if we discover that something new that needs to be done, which yesterday we weren't aware of this, or to fix a bug or something like that, then of course we adapt the sprint backlog, because we want to make sure that everything else that needs to be done during the sprint is transparent, is visible to everyone. So that's the main idea. And finally, E, to identify new impediments. I think you did a great job, like figuring out that there's something wrong, and it's totally fine to go back and say, I want to think about this once again. So yeah, congratulations. You definitely know how the daily Scrum is supposed to work. Thank you for participating. Okay, we're going to continue with Seaweed.
Which of the following is a valid reason for the Scrum Master to attend the daily Scrum? The Scrum Master does not attend the daily Scrum. To learn about,
so you want to remove it or keep it, or?
Let me think. Which of the following is a valid reason for the Scrum Master to attend?
We don't need to eliminate everything in the first shot. We just want to eliminate the kind of answers where we have we're very confident that that's not a good one. So we can just initially skip it if you're unsure.
Yeah, the Scrum Master does not attend the daily Scrum.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Let's still read the rest of the answers, because we are looking into the best answer. So even if a statement is correct, it doesn't mean that it is the best answer for the question that's being asked here. Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
Good.
To learn about new impediments, that is one of the best answers, I think. Which of the following is a valid reason for the Scrum Master to attend? Oh, for him to attend, or her. Boy, these are tricky.
Well, if I would come up here with easy questions, then you would be wasting your time. So
yes,
yeah, it's all about the conversation that we're having here, and not about the question itself.
Yes. No, B is not, because, well, hold on. So in the daily Scrum, it's just the developers, and then if the developers need information, advice, or anything, then they can invite anybody.
Theoretically, we can assume that, even though the Scrum guide does not explicitly mention this, but yes, the developers are managing the meeting, so they can decide who attends and so on. We always need to think about, like, what's the reason? Is the daily Scrum the kind of meeting that allows? Is it like the proper venue for inviting people and discussing within 15 minutes, maybe a technical issue or a domain question or something like that? Because if you're thinking about what I was reading earlier in the Scrum guide, it even says this is not the only opportunity for developers to meet during the day. And actually, they actually do meet multiple times, or have longer meetings and so on, right? So it's often a common misconception to kind of like try to squeeze everything in this given Scrum events and try to get everything to work, right? Okay.
So let me keep B for now.
Okay, cool.
To ensure the meeting remains within the time box. Yes, that's one of the tasks of the Scrum Master.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To ensure the meeting takes place. I would erase that. I would erase that, I think. But let me go through E first. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Scrum Master can attend if they're doing work from the sprint backlog. Definitely erase E.
Okay. We are erasing E. Very good. It's a long one. Oh my God. Okay. Done with erasing. Let's focus on the rest.
Okay.
So we only need one answer and you still have 4 options open.
Okay. So let's erase A because the Scrum Master, if he or she is invited, can attend the daily Scrum.
Okay. So what are we doing with the rest?
I think B. So, and I have to pick one answer?
You have to pick one answer. That's the challenge here. I'm not trying to pressure you on anything.
No, this is good actually. To learn about that it's not true the meeting remains within time. I think C is the best answer.
Okay. So why would C be a better answer than D, for example, right? Because it's kind of like similar in the sense that
similar.
Yeah. And it's also not so far away from learning about
B.
the impedance.
Yep.
But we were talking earlier, we were saying, well, the Scrum Master can also learn about impediments after the event. So
okay.
But yeah.
So then C and D are kind of the same.
Yeah. Okay. So let me help you out.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we're gonna go back to the official source of information here, which is the Scrum guide. So let's take a look where the daily Scrum is hiding from here. And let's see here an important. Have you been in the beginning when I read the Scrum guide?
No, I wasn't. I came in late.
Okay, no problem. I'm gonna read a paragraph for you, and hopefully that will help us a bit understand what's going on here. So the daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers of the Scrum team. To reduce complexity, it is held at the same time and place every working day of the sprint. If the product owner or the Scrum Master are actively working on items in the sprint backlog, they participate as developers. So this is a key question, a key statement in the Scrum guide that's often overlooked and also sometimes misunderstood. So the idea here is that you may have typically smaller teams, and the product owner or the Scrum Master, they maybe are also skilled in the kind of skills that are needed to build a product. So they may dedicate part of their time to also working on the product. Now, in this case, that person, let's call them Phil. Phil, he's a Scrum Master, but he also knows a few things about developing a front-end application, developing a web front-end application. So Phil helps out during the sprint. Now, in that case, we may refer to Phil as the Scrum Master, but when he's developing code and helping out the rest of the developers with tasks in the sprint, he's no longer a Scrum Master from that perspective, but it's kind of like a double accountability. So he's a Scrum Master, but he's also a developer, right? So this is why the Scrum guide says here, and the language can be sometimes a bit confusing, right? Because we're not talking about Phil here, but we're talking about Scrum Master when imagining that Scrum Master is just a person when it's actually just an accountability. So what the Scrum guide is saying that if the product owner or the Scrum Master, they're also doing work from the sprint backlog, it means that they're actually also developers. This is like the part that's not clear. And then they participate in this meeting as developers. They're not participating as in their capacity, in their accountability as a product owner or in their accountability as a Scrum Master, but just as a developer. Because as we're seeing here, the daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers, right?
Right.
So that's kind of like an edge case. So taking a look at the question that was.
So E would be the best answer then.
Yes. Well, let's wait for this to load. Yes. So it would be the best answer with the argumentation that we're not really talking about the Scrum Master here, but we're kind of like you need to see it as a placeholder for Phil, as I was talking earlier, right?
Mhm.
And yes, the person holding the Scrum Master accountability, they are also part of this meeting because they are doing work from the sprint backlog. This is another word for I'm a developer. So only developers can do work on the product. Only developers work on the product, and any work that is done is managed through the sprint backlog. So this is just another way of saying I'm a developer. So the Scrum Master can attend if they are a developer. Super easy, right? So it's all in the in understanding the nuances of some of these terms. So this is the correct answer, and the rest of them, A, yes, it's correct in itself in the sense that yes, the Scrum Master does not attend the daily Scrum. Because if we're looking again in the Scrum Guide, and I highly encourage you to read it once again, it doesn't specify a role for the Scrum Master. It doesn't say, oh, the Scrum Master should be there to do this or to do that. Or even for things like to ensure that the meeting takes place. It's not the job of the Scrum Master to be at the door or to open the Zoom call or something like that. This is not how it should work, right? So I was trying to make a distinction between how Scrum Masters understand in day-to-day practices the Scrum Guide, but these are not the kind of things that requires the Scrum Master to attend the daily Scrum. And it's kind of like a maybe outside of the scope of this, but they can ensure that the meeting takes place without attending the meeting, and they can also ensure that the meeting remains within the time box. Because it's not about being there and like, okay, guys, 15 minutes are over. Like, hey, let's wrap it up. This is not what the Scrum Master is supposed to do, right? Mm-hmm. So they can be outside the event and can still get information in regards to this, and understand. Hey, I noticed that for the past week, the daily Scrum was about half an hour. We need to do something about that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also, I was saying earlier to learn about new impediments. They can do this later on. Okay, good. So I think you learned something from this one. Thank you for participating. And let's go ahead and continue with Monica.
During the daily Scrum, one of the questions developers must answer is, what did I do yesterday that helped the development team meet the sprint goal? Mm-hmm. False. The answer is false. They do not have to answer the who and what question anymore. Mm-hmm. Maybe they used to, but they don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So false.
That's correct. So what I want you to notice here is also this term development team. This is like an older term. Generally, if you're noting something like this, development team and developers, definitely not the same. So this is just an outdated term. So, if you're being asked something like, who's part of the Scrum team, for example, you do not select development team because this is something that's outdated. And yeah, as you were mentioning also, this kind of questions, they are no longer part of the current version of the Scrum Guide. But, in popular culture, a lot of people, they still mechanically use these kind of questions. And a lot of people, if they first come in contact with an organization doing Scrum, and they don't take the time to actually read what the Scrum Guide says, they may get into such practices and have the impression that, oh, this is something that definitely needs to be done. Perfect. Thank you very much for participating. Let's move on to the next one. And we have Sony.
Yeah. So the question is, the daily Scrum is a 15-minute event. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. Select the best to answer.
Okay. So let's see what that means. So we're looking for two answers. Let's go answer by answer. Try to see if there's anything we can eliminate. And if not, we're going to anyway go again over them. So yes, what do you think about option A?
So the meeting cannot exceed 15 minutes. Yes, it should not exceed 15 minutes.
Okay.
But I'll keep this answer. The meeting could take less than 15 minutes.
It's also okay just to, if you're still unsure, let's go over to C.
I can keep this too.
Okay, fair enough.
The meeting could take less than 15 minutes. The meeting should take exactly 15 minutes. It's not required because it shares like it should be 15 minutes or less than 15 minutes. It's okay. So I'll eliminate this.
Wanna remove C?
Yes, I'll remove the C.
Okay.
If the time allows, the product owner may give a short business update. No, I'll remove this too.
Okay.
The meeting cannot end earlier than 15 minutes.
I see you're struggling with this. That's all right.
So,
that's all right.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? Is there any word or something that's, sometimes we have this tendency of we're encountering a word or something and we get stuck on it and we cannot see anything else. So is there anything that struck you or is something that's still unclear? Just feel free to express yourself and let me know what's going through your mind.
Yeah, so as far as I understand the daily Scrum guide, it shares like daily Scrum should be 15 minutes event. It should be only 15 minutes. So now it's like making me like, could it take less than 15 minutes or and earlier than 15 minutes? Oh, okay, take less than 15.
Let's
so
think
what
have you ever been in a daily Scrum event, or you're just learning now about Scrum? Okay, never.
No,
okay.
It's for the first time. Like I am totally new for this.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
that's totally fair. If an event ends, if its scope has been reached, it ends, right? The only idea is we want to keep it within the time box, but we're not gonna stretch it to make it exactly 15 minutes or something like that. So this kind of answers like the meeting cannot end earlier than 15 minutes.
So it's we should remove this too. Yeah.
We should remove this as well. Yeah. So the idea of a time box, even if the word time box is not explicitly mentioned for the daily Scrum because it's such a short event, the idea of a time box is that we don't want to go above the time box. But if the meeting just concludes within that time box, whatever, if we need 10 minutes, we need 10 minutes, and this is it. We're going to go back to work 5 minutes earlier than, let's say, planned in our calendars. But that's it. We're not going to stretch the event more than we need. So for that reason, answers A and B are the correct ones. I'll put them here in green. Okay. See here, Manu, would you like to take on the next question for us?
Question is, the product owner has a busy schedule and cannot spend much time with the Scrum team. The product owner wishes to attend the daily Scrum as a way to sync with the rest of the team. What should the Scrum Master do in this situation?
Okay. So in a nutshell, just let me sum up. So our product owner is super busy, doesn't have a lot of time with the team, wants to attend the daily Scrum so that, he spends some time with the team. Okay. You are the Scrum Master. How would you react to this request?
Sure. The option is encourage the product owner to attend the daily Scrum. Can be the answer. Not sure about this, but
do you think it's a good idea for the product owner to attend the daily Scrum?
Not the daily Scrum. Maybe for a while he can attend, but not the regular daily schedule.
Okay. So you're essentially saying, okay, let's keep A for a second. Let's take a look at B, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Allow the product owner to ensure they remain quiet. No, I don't think so. It's the right answer. Why they should not be remain quiet.
So you invite a product owner, but you want the product owner to participate, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If we are inviting, then I think it's a good idea to invite them in a meeting. They should not remain.
Okay,
right.
perfect. I understand. Okay, let's see the next option.
Coach the product owner about the possible impact of his busy schedule on the sprint outcome.
You like this answer? Is there anything wrong with this answer? You want to move on?
I don't think so. It's a good reason. Because when we are saying it's a daily scrum.
Yes.
So this, I don't think so. C is the good option.
It's not a good option. Okay. Let's continue.
Yes. These increase the duration of the daily scrum to 30 minutes to allow for more discussions. This answer is also, I'm not feeling that good because sometimes it may require more than 15 minutes, but it's not all the time. Like for on everyday basis, we have to spend 30 minutes, even though it is not required. So
it's a good idea to increase the duration of the daily scrum or not?
I think it depends on the requirement, but daily scrum,
let me tell you what's the requirement. The requirement is for this answer to align with what the Scrum Guide is saying.
Actually, I'm new to this course, so I haven't gone through the entire Scrum Guide.
That's absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine.
And so D is also, I'm not going with D.
So I'm going to remove D, right?
Yes.
Good.
And the product owner is allowed to attend, not participate in the daily scrum. I also do not think it's a good idea, like someone is allowed to attend, but they can't actively participate. They are already allowed to attend, means they can participate. Then only it will be a meaningful job. I think so.
Okay. So we're going to remove this one as well.
Yes.
And we're left with one last answer.
Coach the product owner about the purpose of the daily scrum. Yes, I think I can go with this answer.
Okay. So in a nutshell, we're going with A, encourage the product owner to attend the daily scrum, and F, coach the product owner about the purpose of the daily scrum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's one issue with this. And the issue that I have with answer A is the fact that the product owner does not attend the daily scrum. The Scrum Guide, whenever you're going to have a chance to go over what the Scrum Guide is saying, you're going to see that pretty much does not refer to the product owner when discussing the daily scrum. So the Scrum Guide in a nutshell says the daily scrum is for the developers of the Scrum team and does not give a role for the product owner or the Scrum Master. And because you're in the beginning, totally understand this is like one of the most difficult questions that's out there. So I think you did a great job. But I'm just going to show you with one piece of information. If you know that the product owner has nothing to do in the daily scrum, this is how I would approach this question. So if you know that the product owner does not attend the daily scrum, we're going to start here. Encourage the product owner to attend daily scrum? No, definitely not. Allow the product owner to attend, but ensure they remain quiet? No, they're not allowed. Coach the product owner, blah, 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 something else. Okay, not interesting. Increase the duration of the daily scrum? No, in Scrum, we do not go over the time box. It's a common problem in a lot of teams that their daily scrums is not even 30 minutes. It's sometimes getting up to an hour because a lot of people have to give a lot of updates and meetings can be totally misunderstood. So we're not breaking Scrum rules. If you have an answer that is suggesting to break a Scrum rule, that's a no-no.
Okay.
apart from this, the product owner is allowed to attend but cannot participate. These kind of things with he can attend but not participate, but participate and not attend. This is all nonsense. The product owner has nothing to do in the daily scrum, doesn't play a role. If they just sit there, they are silent. If they're participating, if they're just watching from a corner, if they're just listening, they don't have a role in that meeting, right?
Yeah,
so
understood.
just by having these pieces of information that we're not breaking the Scrum Guide and what the Scrum Guide actually says about the information, we're going to find, let's say, 2 more boring answers, right? So these answers are like, we are thinking about practical situations and meetings, and we're kind of like forgetting about the boring answers. And quite often boring answers where we cannot find the flaw in them, they are the correct answers. So what it says here is the product owner has a busy schedule. What this means is that the product owner does not spend a lot of time with the rest of the Scrum team. If the product owner is not actively involved with the Scrum team, the developers, for example, they cannot easily ask questions or cannot not easily show progress or ask for feedback or things like that, right? So the entire participation, the entire dynamic of the Scrum team is not working so well. So this may have a potential negative impact on the sprint outcome, meaning that if the product owner is more away than he's present with the Scrum team, they may come at the end of the sprint and say, oh, but this is not a feature how I imagined it. Well, too bad, because you weren't during the sprint to give us any feedback, can say the developers, right? So this is the reason why the Scrum Master is there to coach. This is like one of the good words, coach. When we see coach, we already, we like coach. So Scrum Master coaches, tells, hey, product owner, look, I'm noticing you're not spending really a lot of time. You shouldn't be surprised at the end of the sprint if, our application has 5 buttons instead of 2. Just saying. Of course, I'm making everything a bit more informal, but you get the idea. And the second correct option, F, coach, again, the word coach the product owner about the purpose of the daily Scrum. What this means is the daily Scrum is for the developers. This is another way of saying you have nothing to do in the daily Scrum meeting, product owner, right? The daily Scrum has a totally different purpose. Okay. So went a bit over the event time box. I'm still going to stick around for questions at the end, but if you have to go, definitely sorry for keeping you a bit longer.